here we are with Huffy BMX and three of the team members of the Huffy BMX program. So, to start all of this fun conversation, could I learn about each one of you and what you do at Huffy, starting with Kris?
Thanks, Brant. So Kris Parlett, I am the Vice President for Marketing and our direct-to-consumer sales channel here at United Wheels, and Huffy being our largest brand. And so my day-to-day is working with our team on strategies and programs that help elevate our brand and connect with more riders.
Cool. How about Jason? Maybe? All right, let's skip to Katie. We'll go back.
I am Katie. I am our digital marketing coordinator. I handle everything from, website stuff to local events to communicating with our riders.
Nice. Cool. And Katie and I have already met, so that's how some of this came to be. Now, Jason, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
You're okay.
Something else, and I think I played over when you.
That's okay. Can you give the quick rundown and introduce me to what you do at Huffy?
Yeah. So I'm the senior manager of engineering. I'm on the product development side, so I do anything from new development for any of our platforms to working on BMX bikes and whatever it is that we're working on.
Cool. This is fun. I'm excited to have the three of you involved with this conversation because I think it'll be an insightful one for people in the BMX world, because a lot of people right now are wondering, like, Huffy's still in BMX? Like, what's going on? So I want to answer that question with this interview potentially. And because there's three of us, if there's one of you that feels like you could answer any of these questions best, feel free, like, totally freestyle with this. I'm not formal at all. We're just having a conversation. I'm just learning about Huffy and what you guys do. So first of all, I kind of wanted to talk about the current events and what's going on with Huffy BMX specifically.
So, Katie, do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
You fire away and I'll add some color if I need to.
Sounds perfect. So right now we're we've assembled a small team of brand ambassadors, and most they've been announced publicly. So Huck Kurinsky, we've been partnered with for a couple of years. Young phenom up in upstate Ohio, up in the Cleveland area.
Yep. And
then we have Carly Kane, who is also from the our general area, our region. She's from Southern Indiana, and so we've met Carly before. We've been part of different riding clinics that Carly has put on for young riders, and a lot of women's clinics for riders of all ages. And then you have, Nick Bruce, who is our latest add to our team. And really where the relationship with Nick kind of came together was through Huck. Nick is Huck's coach, and I met Nick for the first time out at Woodward West for Huck's competition last fall, and or I should say the competition that Huck was part of. Met him there, and just a really down to earth, cool dude all around. But nothing official happened in that meeting. It was just, hey, I'm Huck's coach, and hi, I'm Kris from Huffy. And then fast forward to later in the year, last year. We were doing a bike donation in Indiana with one of our, ironically, motorsports drivers, his hometown, and we wanted to have something that was very cycling centric as part of our presentation. And so we invited Huck to come down and do some stunts for some jumps and things for the kids. These were elementary kids, and Nick came along. Nick wanted to be part of this because he believed in what Huck was doing and celebrating riding and getting young kids pumped about riding. And so he came, and we spent, Katie, myself, spent all day with Nick at that point, and we just had some good conversations. Still nothing in the form of partnership or anything like that, just getting to know one another. and then things started to transpire from there. So as we went to look to ease our way back into BMX, quite frankly, those were three ambassadors that make the most sense for us, because yes, it's about supporting the athlete and what they do in the competitive side, but it's also about what they do on the mentoring side and really helping us with our mission of getting more kids on bikes, quite frankly, to put it simple. So right now we're supporting them in their competitions and trying to rally the crowd, so to speak, for them and following their journey. And then we're learning from them, is kind of how I would really summarize the latest effect. How do they like their bike? How do they like their frame? You know, what are they seeing at the track or on the jumps? What are they feeling? What are they seeing? What are they hearing? And we're just taking that in and kind of having two-way conversations with them as ambassadors, and then how we can help grow the sport of BMX. That's would be a quick summary, so to speak.
Cool. I think you did a really good job, Katie. Do you have anything to add?
Honestly, just the way that each rider, it's just very natural the way that they tie into our holistic family focus. Like, they all really care about the family aspect of riding. Like, it can be, since you don't really, you're on your bike by yourself, but they all care about the family aspect of BMX and just riding as a whole. And that's been something that's just so naturally come out with each of them in their own ways, which I think has been really great for us, and what we have, that's our whole heart behind what we do, and we love that they align with that so closely.
Yeah, I would agree. Go ahead.
If I can add to that, so to Katie's point, and Katie, thanks for actually bringing that up, because one thing that's just, we talk to Kier, who's Huck's dad, almost on a daily basis. So he might as well be Huffy family, like working out of our office and everything else. But even as we've, started the relationships with Carly and with Nick, what's been fascinating and really kind of above and beyond expectations is just their family's involvement and investment. I mean, we all know it happens behind the scenes, but it's been really powerful for them to experience kind of the Huffy way of celebrating these athletes and forming a partnership. It's been really cool because I'm a parent myself of athletes, more stick and ball, but nonetheless, and it's been awesome to see how proud they are of their child or spouse. So in Nick's case, his wife, just their appreciation for how, frankly, Katie has put together an awesome program of welcoming them into the family, and that family support, you get to see it exposed more behind what's happening behind the scenes, now more public, and that's truly powerful, and kind of also kind of justifies what we're doing and kind of reinforces our mission.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it's a much different approach to how BMX companies normally would, approach bringing people on or announcing it or the marketing behind it. It's definitely more of an approach by people who are, marketing central, like first, not, they don't come from BMX first and then learn about it. And I think that's an important thing for BMX as a whole, because this is one of the topics I wanted to bring up and talk about, is like, how long have you guys been working on this reintroduction?
Well, it's interesting you bring up the outward appearance of having a group of marketers kind of lead the way here, because what's awesome, even more powerful, I believe, is that we actually have a core group of, we call it the BMX crew or the group or whatever you want to call it, behind the scenes, that includes Jason. Jason's been hip to hip with me for 3 years plus now, I think, working on various aspects of this program. But it goes into our tech services team. It goes into our product team. It kind of runs the gamut of our organization of team members that have been involved. And it started when I got here in 2018. I grew up in the Dayton area. I had kind of a BMX style bike myself, and I knew Huffy, but I'm a Gen Xer, and so a lot of things have transpired since those years. And when I started here, I came from the CPG world where brand is everything. And I stepped in the door and I thought, we're actually capable of more. What's holding us back? And I won't get into that full-fledged story, but we've been on this mission of really getting Huffy reintroduced or introduced to young people. We've kind of missed the boat on that without going into a lot of details over the past couple of decades. We still put more kids on bikes than anyone in the world, but we don't forge that relationship with them. And that's kind of our responsibility. So Jason, with his wealth of experience in the BMX world, and being a former BMX pro and just his engineering experience, we started with some product, just soft launching, frankly, some decent frames and decently spec'd for the mass market product. And the organic pickup of that was amazing to the point where we had tracks just reaching out left and right. Can I order this so that I can do a Huffy league? And can we partner together? And then they created their own content, amplified it themselves. So it validated everything that we have been working on, that there's organic pull for us being involved, for us being part of this conversation and part of the BMX community and helping grow the sport. And so, again, what the hardest part was the discipline that we agreed to as a team, Jason and our product team manager, director. We needed to crawl, walk, run. We couldn't just sprint down this and do it the wrong way. And we're still, quite frankly, I would say we're in a light jog. I mean, I wouldn't say we're running or sprinting by any stretch. And that's very intentional because we've got to learn to make sure that we're doing it what we feel to be the right and informed way. But it's been several years and it's been a lot of tough conversations because we can't control the sales a lot of times and then you go through COVID and a lot of things out of our control. But what's been most powerful is the commitment and excitement and everything that the cross-functional team has shown. And that's kind of what led us to where we are today. A lot of it happened organically. And because we allowed ourselves to be patient, the pieces kind of fell together to where Jason and I have a lot of conversations where we're like, can you believe this just happened? Can you believe this is happening? And then we'll have other BMX crew members. I had another conversation today with Jesse on our team, and he just said, man, if I ever need to cheer myself up, I just go to social at night. And I'm just so proud and so happy we took the approach we did. So that's, again, just one iteration of it. I don't know if Jason or Katie have another one.
It's pretty good. Hard to beat that.
So one thing that's really interesting in all of that to me is that everything you're talking about after, COVID happened is during a super, super low point in BMX. Are you guys conscious of the fact that BMX is at the lowest point it's been in recent history and in your reintroduction of this? Because from an outward looking in, it's like, why would they do this at a time when BMX is hurting so bad? And I think it's a testament to everything you just said of it's not necessarily as much about those numbers as it is trying to do it right.
Correct. And I don't want to do all the talking. If Jason or Katie have something, just say something. But Brent, you're exactly right. This is an interesting time for the sport, for riding, for cycling. I mean, you can go as big as you want at a whatever view, mile high view you want to look at in the entire category, and it's a very difficult, one word you can say, challenging, you can say all these things, but interesting is definitely a word, definitely an accurate description, because in one way we're exploding in e-bikes and e-mobility, and in other ways, how do we keep our different, call it acoustic / analog pedal aspects of the category going and growing? I, again, coming from the stick and ball world of youth sports, I think and I'm not trying to say I know it all because I'm learning every single day, but I think there are ways to innovate and evolve the way we even approach the sport of BMX. And I think we can learn a lot from other youth sports that are in sports in general that are more recession proof and don't have such a strong cyclical piece to it. In fact, that was one of the big learnings coming to this this world for me was how cyclical BMX is. Like it follows almost a sine graph of bam, 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 bam. And I kind of want to break that, or at least minimize the peaks and valleys. And I think for us, this actually is a very good time for us to get involved, because I think, first of all, it allows, if I'm being transparent, the cost of entry is lower than it would be in other times. And so it allows us to do more with less, and really learn quicker. So it accelerates our learning curve. But it also, you never really kind of learn more, have more open-mindedness until someone's in a vulnerable position as humans or as businesses or as whatever. When someone's vulnerable for whatever reason, they're open ears. Like, how can I get out of this? How can I improve? And so we have a good audience now, a more receptive audience, I feel, than we would in other scenarios. So for all of those reasons, I think the time is meant to be. Again, we haven't forced it. So it's not like we said, January of 2024 is our coming out party. That was not in the plans. So many pieces have really just fallen into place. And part of what you described is it just happened naturally. And quite frankly, it's almost a tailwind for us, not a headwind.
Which just makes sense. And I think it's probably helping in the reception in the BMX world too, in that if we were at a peak and freestyle BMX or BMX racing was doing amazing, it would probably, like Nick's announcement, might have been met with more criticism than it was people just being excited in general for him. I think we're also at a better place in BMX as a culture where people are more accepting of these things, realizing that these are opportunities and not necessarily, like, realizing that they should be looked at more like opportunities than any kind of company trying to take advantage of anyone, because BMX as a whole has had a outlook like that for a long time. And personally, I've tried to combat that with what I do, saying, like, you shouldn't look at this like someone trying to take advantage of anything. You should look at it like an opportunity you should take the most advantage of while it's there. So absolutely to all of that. Right.
I agree with you too. And I think it's great, the message you're putting out there. I think our entire industry needs it. We have a lot of opportunities to be vulnerable and be more accepting, to get more people on bikes, because that's what we need. That's what society needs, and not to get super philosophical about it. That's part of our mission, and we've really dialed in to deliver it. So
that's awesome. So where are things currently with the actual physical, like, Huffy bikes side of Huffy BMX? Where in the process is that?
Well, so, and the product guy is going to have to talk at some point. No. What I would say, and then I'll probably tag Jason into this, but we are always innovating. We stamped innovation on one of our strategic pillars, and in full transparency, it hasn't always been there. So we have recently, in the past couple of years, stamped it in, that we're going to commit to this. And that's not just for BMX, that's across the board. But what that means for us is there are models that we're not going to allow, and this is no disrespect to any of our retail partners, we love them all equally, but we have to own some of our own destiny with our, and again, this comes from your direct consumer leader, but we have to own some of our own destiny and some of our innovations that Jason and the team put together. And so there are specific models, for example, that no matter what happens in the retailer landscape, the third-party retailer landscape, we are holding on to. So we will have a race frame that is upgradable, a couple of race frames, potentially different sizes. We will have freestyle frames that are available and a couple of sizes of freestyle frames. We're not also going to just throw it all out there and say, here's 20 varieties to look at either. We need to learn what people really want and what we can sustain and not overstep. So that's a very important piece of this. And then from an innovation standpoint, so there's that piece of saving what we need to that we have currently. And then there, from an innovation standpoint, Jason is always, and to say he's gifted at geometries is an understatement, not to toot his horn, but he is always looking for ways to improve geometries of various frames. And we are working with the various riders to test those out and figure out what works best. And that's kind of where the future is. And you can imagine kind of again, we're not saying we're going all in on super premium BMX and that's what Huffy now is going to be next week. That's not who we are.
Yeah.
But there is an opportunity to elevate our game while still making the sport accessible to the masses. So with that, I'll tag it into
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head in terms of how we went about it initially too. I mean, the initial models that we developed that got us so much kind of traction in the market were focused on an entry-level price point or a lower barrier to entry, but that met the needs of the current landscape or the rider's needs. I mean, they're more accurately emphasize geometry specific to like race. I mean, the HX Pro that we put out was an aluminum frame. I think retail price point was under $200. But I fully upgraded one for myself and was able to take it to the track and get pretty good feedback on it. And the fact that that was such an easy bike to obtain and the geometry performed the way I would have expected it from my past. And then the ability to push, put higher end components on it. That was exactly what we were trying to do. And we did it pretty quietly just to see, what the feedback would be, what the industry would say. And the same thing went for freestyle. I mean, we, even just small things like bringing tapered stays into, a more mass available freestyle bike. Just kind of focusing on some of those aspects and trying to bring that technology into a more accessible space. Not to eliminate what's in the industry now, because what's in the industry now is a totally different purpose.
Yeah.
But lowering that barrier to entry was initially what we were trying to do. And now that we've gained traction and riders and had positive feedback, we're focusing on that as a strength for us to enter the space, especially with Kris mentioned, like more premium products, a higher end frame for freestyle, a higher end frame for race. Now that we have athletes that can give us feedback and we can really design to their needs and what they're looking for, that's the best part for us because, I have done this in the past and have some background, but I can't say that what I would want my bike to be is going to be what makes sense with the riding currently. I ride currently now, but it's not to any level like the riders that we have. And using their insight, I mean, we went and spent hours with Carly, reviewing tweaks, and our engineering team was there. We brought everybody and got the feedback from her, and then came back and really made a project out of it. And now it's kind of blossoming into this cool environment and letting us focus on the product and what the riders are looking for. I mean, rider centricity is a big focus for us too. And Kris mentioned strategic pillars in our mission. We're changing our culture to support riders, and this flows right in with that. And having the team that can support it is awesome. I mean, I communicate with Huck's dad pretty much once a week, if not more, on the frame that we did for Huck. And a lot of people probably don't even know we started working on a frame for Huck as well. And same with Nick. I mean, we've been in, Nick, I got a piece of paper here of like a million head. I can't see it. It's blurred. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect, actually.
But it's, it's like, here's a bunch of head tube designs. Can you, what's your thoughts? Is there one you like better? BMX is hard, right? Because the bikes are somewhat similar. It's really difficult to differentiate yourself, but we don't want to replicate what's there. We want rider input. I could geometry is geometry and tubing is tubing, but getting the rider's feedback is way more valuable to me, and I think it is with Katie and Kris as well. And so, I'll just send drawings like that to any of them, Huck included, and we'll just have conversation and say, okay, is this what you think is right, or do you want to see something different? And we have, some of our higher end brands that we have a pretty heavy, a powerful engineering team. So it's pretty cool to be able to take aspects from all sides of, the industry and then bring the rider feedback in and really make a product that we can all be proud of. So I would say that those things are coming, but it's way more rider centric than it is just getting a product to market. It's more focused on the rider.
That's important. And you made a comment there. Geometry is geometry, and you made a comment about how BMX freestyle bikes are kind of similar. That might be true, but I would say that's where the intent matters more than the other side of it. Because there's a lot of companies out there that can just go and pick a frame out of a catalog, put their name and logo on it, and that's their frame. But you having, showing Nick different head tubes, like, here, what do you want to do for a head tube? And having that intent behind it, putting the resources there to be intentional with the design is what I think is important, is what I think people in the freestyle community need to hear about what you guys are doing. Because freestyle BMX kind of landed on what works. We've kind of figured out through overbuilding and underbuilding and then meeting in the middle where the happy medium lies for a freestyle BMX frame: quality, material, all of that. So to have that intent behind it is important, and I'm really glad to hear that. And I'll be totally honest with you guys. When Huck's dad first came to me and was like, hey, we're talking to Huffy, I was like, oh man, I'm kind of nervous. Like, I hope, and I didn't tell him, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to avoid anything because I don't know what's going on. But all I could say was, like, I just hope that they're going to do it right. And through everything I'm hearing, it sounds like you guys are doing the absolute best you can to do it right.
We are certainly trying, for sure.
And
we are.
Go ahead.
Well, we've hit on it, and not to be too corporate about it. That's not what we're trying to be. But, it really took a refocus and a relaunch of our mission, vision, purpose, and strategic pillars to really give us reinforced kind of support, if you will, to go do what we're doing right now. What Jason talked about, what I talked about, it gives us that kind of halo to say, no, we are living what we're saying we're doing. Huck and the team came in at a great time, introduced to us by a former employee, and so we're keeping that mission going through him, and it's blossoming into something bigger and better. But it's happening again organically. We are trying our best not to force it or rush it along.
It's awesome. I did have a question. I think Jason will be able to answer this one, because this is definitely something that people in the BMX side are going to be concerned about, is just the difference between mindset when it comes to those mass market bikes and the more premium bikes. Because I think in the past, there have definitely been companies that have like blurred the lines there. And as far as I'm concerned, that becomes like a safety issue whenever people think they can take this bike that's at a certain level and do the top level things on it. Like, you can for a minute. So do you guys like have any thoughts on how you go approach that, or are you conscious of it at the very least?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Just based on my experience, there are bikes like that live in all segments of the industry, right? Yep. So there's entry level product at the IBD level, and there's entry level products at the mass level. What we try to do is make sure that we're emphasizing the product specific for the rider, and also the experience. So we don't want to make products, and we don't want to get behind products that aren't going to perform to what the expectation is. Blurring the lines isn't necessarily, that's a challenge, right? I mean, so that's hard to do. So putting the correct geometry on there, will make a rider perform a certain way, or maybe a ramp feels a specific way because the head tube angle is 75 degrees versus, whatever it ends up being, or, your rear end shorter. What I think that does is there may be riders at an entry level that get that product. That's our goal. And following it up with tiered products that meet the needs of the rider as they grow. I mean, Kris kind of brought that up. We're trying to grab a hold of riders and keep them. We want to keep people with our brand. So if there are, lower spec items that are in the space, we realize that, but we want to offer a bike that supports riders throughout their, experience with BMX and with cycling in general. And for the most part, we do a pretty substantial amount of testing just to confirm that our products meet the expectations of the riders at all levels. I mean, we have standards that we set internally beyond ISO and CPSC that we focus on as a company because our company is so large. So our focus is making sure that we deliver the best product at whatever tier it is that we're at. But we do know, I mean, realistically, a frame that's going to cost you $500 or $400, there's material changes, there's technologies, that we can focus on where we would maybe make it more of an efficient build, using butted tubing, things like that the technology is where the real cost comes from, the material and the processing. For us, from the mass models that we did deliver, overbuilding and just making sure that it performs well is a focus for sure. We didn't, especially with launching product like that, we wanted to make sure that they performed above and beyond the expectation. And like I said, I rode the product myself, and I did this for a long time, with DK for a long time, and those bikes are awesome. Just the fact that they're the price points that they are, and you can ride them, and the performance is really good, from what you would expect. I think that's our focus, no matter what the price point is. We still want the riders to enjoy it, and having some product that doesn't perform just because of the price point, it's not something that we're looking to do. Yeah,
and I would say too that's where the marketing comes in, and just making sure that it doesn't, the message is out there that this bike is for the people who might just be riding around the neighborhood, and then this bike is for if you're trying to go to the skate park and really make a go at learning whatever. And I'm really glad to hear how you guys conscious of all of that and pay attention to it, because that's what people like me in the BMX world are going to see.
BMX doesn't just mean it's a 20-inch wheel.
Yeah, well, there's that too.
That's a challenge.
Well, and I would say what Jason's talking about, and this whole conversation, this has been a big part of the past 3 years of, call it the BMX crew, of going back and forth of, we got to think about this. What about this? How when this happens, what's next? So what you're asking is exactly the questions we had for each other internally.
It's awesome to hear. And the capturing a rider at the very beginning and keeping them aspect of things is something I felt like core BMX has kind of missed when it comes to the companies that are already out there that do that, because there are a couple out there. There's not very many, but they've sort of had bad perception through the years. And I've felt like it's kind of that missed opportunity of seeing it the way you're talking about it, seeing it if you can be somebody's first bike, and then they don't have to go and find some other company or something whenever they graduate in whatever world they're going to. It's that makes the most sense. And Katie and I had a conversation at Ray's because I've been trying to figure out the question of how do we sell these bikes in BMX? Because there's bikes available, they aren't going to be sold to people who already ride. We got to figure out how to get these bikes into the hands of people who don't already have a bike, and capturing someone at the beginning is how you can do that.
Well, and you're not going to capture someone at the beginning with a high-end bike if they're like, I've never done this before, you know? And so that's part of who we are as Huffy, is we have a really good opportunity to nurture those riders from the beginning, and kind of, you know, also use our athletes to help riders understand what of our bikes are going to fit them for where they're at in their journey with BMX, because everybody's not going to start out on a top tier bike.
Yep.
So we're just really well equipped to do that. And I think having athletes who know what they're talking about is a huge piece of that, because they can help with these younger riders that are so excited to talk to them and learn about Huffy and learn about what they do. And they can help them understand, you know, here's what's right for you right now with where you're at in your journey with BMX.
Yep. And I think Huffy is in a unique position within freestyle BMX being reintroduced that a core company that's been around forever might not be as accepted to do. Like if a company that's been around forever would turn around tomorrow and was like, all right, guys, we're going to make bikes for the people who are just starting out riding bicycles, not even BMX, just bicycles, it could be met with a different perception. But because you guys are already doing it, you're able to shape the funnel from the very beginning, and it's a cool opportunity, and I'm glad you guys like see it that way.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is you know, we to kind of sum up kind of what Katie and Jason touched on, is we do have a decent sized company from a scale standpoint of multiple brands, multiple platforms, different tiers of products, a lot of electric products. And as you look at the BMX world and kind of what's that roadmap, or what are some things we can do to help grow the sport, you look at e-bikes. The e-bikes are growing organically just based out of the, you know, the natural interest and just the transition of people and e-mobility as a whole. But one thing we know, the big barriers to purchase for e-products is cost and trial. And if you can get someone on an e-bike, usually you got them. And so we know that. And so we use that in a lot of our strategies to get people on them to try it and then get them in to buy it. I think for BMX, I think there's a way, as an industry, we've got to figure out a way to trigger that FOMO with kids, with people in general, that they're missing out on this adventure, whether it's at a pump track or whether it's in a dirt, wherever it is, that kind of adrenaline you feel, that feeling you get when you're actually doing anything BMX. How do you capture that in some digital format or something to spread that FOMO and get more people wanting it? And that's kind of what we're trying to get at: experiential, and then amplifying that experiential feeling. So
I think that itself could be good for BMX as a whole, because it's how you capture new people, and that's been my latest like struggle and trying to figure out, like with what I do on YouTube, I'm trying to figure out, like, instead of just having these videos where I just go out and ride my bike and that's the video because it's what I've always done, I just like documenting things. I'm like, all right, how can I put a purpose behind this so that maybe if somebody who doesn't ride sees it, they could decide that maybe they want to try it. And you guys are going into your program with that mindset, and I think that there's genuine potential for it to help the whole of BMX.
absolutely.
It'll be cool to see how that shakes out, and I'm excited to see that as well, just because once someone's in the atmosphere and the ecosystem, that opens up everything else.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, the other thing that I'm stealing from that dynamic is from stick and ball sports. Is once you bring someone into that community of that team atmosphere, of that just, and what I've learned from parents of BMX riders is it's very similar, and it's just getting them past that initial barrier trying it, and that vulnerability that it exposes.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, or even as a young adult, or even an adult, and once you get them there, it's a game changer. And case in point, Jason started a pump track Wednesdays, and we go to our local pump track, and my butt is there, and Katie, our cross-functional team, people that have no business on a pump track, if I'm being quite honest, but we're all there, and it's declared a no judgment zone and all that kind of stuff. And but once you try it, you're like, okay, I'll be back next week, and then you schedule your whole week's meetings around not interfering with pump track Wednesday. So I think when it comes to out in the real world, I think it's figuring out that hack of getting people just there, making, to Katie's point, barrier of entry almost non-existent in the grand scheme, to at least try it. And then once they try it, ease them into it and kind of usher them along the path. So that's where we're at.
I'm happy that there's someone like you guys who have the resources that you do available, because to be totally honest, I don't know how many companies in the freestyle world now could do that without diverting from what they're doing as a business just to like survive and stay in business. It's kind of an afterthought whenever you have your core business and you make your products, whatever, to take that route and then bring it in versus starting fresh and doing it from the very beginning.
Well, to kind of flip that on its head, this is our effort from a Huffy brand standpoint to be our one focused initiative. So, one of the rhythms or I don't know what you want to call it, dynamics we fell into year after year was trying to be everything to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We have inline scooters, we have licensed products, we have this, we have that, we have e-products. And we were, quite frankly, spread so thin with all of our resources trying to just be everything. We can still do support for all of those things, because again, we're getting people on wheels, we're fine, we're check, that's awesome. But we really, in order to tell our brand story and be rider-centric and really introduce ourselves with younger people, we had to find a focus. So this actually fulfills a need for us strategically to find a focus and go all in on it and figure it out. But again, going way back to my earlier point, do it as consciously as possible along the way. When I say go all in, it's not a rush thing, it's intentional.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it's happened for us, and it's been really exciting so far, even though we're still early in our journey. It's been very exciting so far to see what kind of took us a step back to say, okay, we really needed to focus on something. What would we do and why? And when BMX was first brought up, it wasn't like, yes, that's it, let's go. I mean, Jason and the BMX crew, we had already been working on things, but it was like, oh my gosh, this could jump us ahead too fast, or there was a lot of anxiety of messing it up. And you know what? We're not going to do everything perfect. I promise you. We will make missteps, and the most important thing is we'll learn fast, fail fast, learn fast, and get better. But that's how it all came to be, is finding that focus to get our brand back where it needs to be.
That's cool. So maybe this would be a good one for each of you to kind of give your own take on. But I kind of was curious about if we summarize like the goals of the freestyle program as a whole. And I think each of you would have your own kind of way of looking at that.
I can take us away. I think from a freestyle perspective, I feel like kind of I've already touched on this from like we've talked about this a lot, just like the nurturing riders from the beginning. We have Huff, who is 9 years old, and we have Nick, who is 30 years old. And so we kind of have, two ends of the spectrum, seeing, and both of them are exceptional riders and really incredible athletes, and just being able to see what they can do. I think it speaks really to like the opportunity that exists for all riders, you know, so making the sport feel attainable. Because we were shooting the content for Nick, and I was like, man, it is crazy. Like, he is so good. I am watching him thinking, like, I could do that. Like, that, he makes it look easy, you know, but in a sense of, like, kids have idols when they see an athlete, whether that's BMX or football or baseball, you know, getting them excited about stuff, because our world is becoming increasingly focused on technology, which is a good thing, but you know, at the same time, like, kids don't get outside the same. And so just seeing someone young like Huck, and then an athlete who has really progressed in his career like Nick, you know, it's a really cool opportunity just to show kids like what exists with BMX, the opportunity for them to really get good at something and have something to aspire to that also is keeping them active, and you know, giving them something to work towards and focus on and be disciplined in. I think for me, like, that's something I love. I have a 1-year-old, and so I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna make him, you know, try BMX when he's old enough, because it really is so cool the way that you know, it really is something that each rider gets to make their own. So that's kind of my thoughts behind it.
That's cool. I'd really be curious to hear Jason's answer, because I love the concept and perspective of this from like the actual hard parts goals that you might have.
For components specifically?
Just in general with the freestyle program, and when you think of the goals that you might have for that, what does that look like?
It's funny. I mean, even outside of, I have my own kind of dreams and hopes for how far we go, but I have a really similar outlook to what Katie had. I mean, it's awesome to look at our brand and what we're capable of. When I first got here, I wasn't sure. I mean, I had a very similar perspective, and seeing what our brand is capable of and what we can bring to the space, that's my goal, is to bring the best product we can and get it to as many riders as possible. I think getting riders into the sport is really a big focus for me. I want to see the sport grow. I hate seeing that things are skate parks are closing or trails are getting shut down. I hate to see that. I want to bring more of that mainstream to the industry, and I think that our company is uniquely set up to do that. And I hope that that's what we can do by entering the space. That I want to see, you know, us bring a really awesome product, because I know that's something that we're capable of doing. And we typically have, you know, a reputation of bringing products to market in the masses, and I want to show people that we're capable of bringing whatever type of product to the market that we want. And I want riders to enjoy it, and I want to change that perspective. And I think that for me, that's a big focus, is brand awareness and getting the name that a company that's been around for 130 years should have. I mean, that's something I'm really proud of, and I hope that freestyle does that. I hope that race does that. You know, I really want to see what we can do for the industry and how we can become a part of it, and keep riders. I think keeping riders on our product, that's something that, I don't know if it's a weird thing for me, but like once I get on something and I find something that I'm comfortable with, and I want to stick with that brand. I would much rather see someone do that with our product, you know, come up through the industry and stick with it through whatever level they want to take it, you know. And I think that that's a big focus for me. Yeah, and I think sky's the limit in terms of product and where we end up going. But like Kris said, I mean, it's a slow process, and we're learning, and we want to not lose sight of focusing on the rider. And I'm a very firm believer in that. And I think that it's funny, and you'll probably get a little bit different responses, but it's a pretty holistic culture, you know, for what our goals are with the BMX, you know, the segment. We're all kind of on the same page, whatever aspect. And whether you have a background in the industry or not, we're all just really excited to see what we can do with it and what we can do for the sport. And I think that that's the best way to go about it for us.
Awesome. I'm really excited for a Nick Bruce frame.
I almost showed you head tubes, but they're
well, sometimes you just can't get the spoilers.
It was fun doing. I mean, even that, like, just the conversations with Nick, I got a little bit of insight. Like, I had a general idea. I mean, I've probably drawn 20 frames for myself just because I love doing it, and I'm like, oh, this would be awesome. I could make this, But like now, I have somebody to really collaborate with, and we have riders here. Like, there's quite a bit of people that work here that ride BMX and have rode with me in like my whole life. I mean, Jesse, I've known Jesse since I was, I don't know, 12 or something, and he works here with me, and Michael and Zach and Aaron. I mean, we've all been around this like Dayton, Ohio BMX scene our whole lives. And now we all work together and we all have a similar passion for the sport. So we've all kind of gotten these sprinklings of the industry throughout our whole lives. And now we've got all these tools, right? And we're in these positions where we can influence products. And then you add that element of riders like Huck and Nick and Carly. It's like, man, we can really make some cool product. And talking with Nick is like, he's giving me insights where I wouldn't even have thought about, and he's like, this is how frames react when I do this. So can we find a way around that? Or can we work on some new geometry to support this trick? Because I prefer to have, a frame that would, I want to change my seat post position because of the way I do bar spins or something like that. So we get that extra insight versus just our own experience. And it's awesome because it makes my job a piece of cake, so I can quickly jump to a drawing and then I'm modifying tubing to support what he's asking for, and same with Carly and Huck. Like I said, Huck's dad gives me feedback pretty frequently, and that's the best part. I mean, that's exactly what we're looking for, because then we can straight up go to the market and say, this stuff came from the riders.
Yep.
I can make whatever I want, but this came from these riders, which is a really cool. That's the best part for me. I'm almost happy that it worked that way in terms of how we're developing product, because it's great to have their input, because again, like, we can make whatever we want, but it's real, now that we have that extra feedback.
Yeah, and if we had more time, I have a whole conversation that I would love to go into with that, because BMX sometimes gets a little bit lost when it comes to those types of things, and just giving people product and telling them what is going to be their thing. And but being conscious of time, I want to hear Kris's answer before we end up getting cut off.
Sure. Well, I'll make it quick. I'm going to echo what Katie and Jason said, because they're absolutely on. I mean, for me, it's how do we get kids introduced to this sport and have them fall in love with that and riding in general, period. So at the end of the day, when my time is done, the brand is in a better spot than it's ever been, and more kids are riding than they were when I started. And when it comes to the rider centricity piece, I think, what Jason said, I think there's this internal pride that's building even more than it existed before. It's always been here, but I think we're unleashing it more with this process and this program. And it's amazing to watch, because it's, to Jason's point, it's all inspired directly from riders that need it. And then finally, I don't want to say prove people wrong, but I wouldn't mind a few touches at the end of all of this when we do figure out a way to grow the sport and, make people believe in shrinking those peaks and valleys. COVID proved it. It shouldn't take a pandemic to prove it.
Yeah.
We want to prove it outside of a situation like that it's there. We know it's there. I was once asked, why in the hell would I spend more money in marketing when the market is flat? And I say, because if you grow us, you grow the market. And I was told, I won't say by who, I don't believe you. And then COVID happened, and lo and behold, the market grew and exploded. So it's all very possible, and I think we can do it outside of a pandemic next time.
Awesome. So, for anyone who might be wondering after this whole conversation, where do they learn more about all of this?
Katie, where do they learn more?
You can follow us on Instagram, Huffy_BMX. And similar to kind of what we were talking about, education piece, we're working on building out more and more BMX content, kind of sharing with riders too, just at Huffy.com. What we currently offer, and as we continue to expand that, we'll continue to expand that education piece to tell people what we're doing and get everybody excited.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all three of you for being willing to do this with me. It's cool that, someone like Nick can announce that he's riding for Huffy, his new brand, and the next week I can come on here and talk with you and learn directly from the people involved what's going on. And I think there's a lot of situations where that might not be the case, and the fact that we even were able to do this, I could hear from the person designing his bike, from the people who are doing all of the marketing, not only the culture behind it, but the intent and everything else gives the transparency to people in BMX that I think is needed. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Absolutely. I can't wait to come down and visit and learn more.
Man, you need to do that. Kris has a presentation that taught me something. I've been here for like 15 years, and Kris is running through the building with the riders, and I got to be a part of it. And it was pretty awesome to see the stuff I didn't even know.
Awesome. I'm excited for that. We'll make it happen. And everybody else, go check it out. Cool stuff in the works. Thanks for watching.